I am so excited to bring you a review of one of my absolute all-time favorite books today. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. You've probably already read this because this has been out for a number of years, and this is a book that I actually reread every single year in January because I feel like every time I come back to it, I just need a refresher on the concepts in here, on the ideas, on the things that James shares. It's just such a wonderful book. So I would highly, highly recommend that you check it out. I don't want to give too much of it away because honestly, I really want you to be able to read this for yourself as well. The introduction to this book, as a side note, is one of the most riveting introductions to a self-help book I think I've ever read in my entire life. Not going to give it away, but go check it out for yourself because it's absolutely just riveting, kind of what led James to write this book and kind of where he came up with all of the ideas that he has around habits and how to really improve your habits, which is such a great thing to if you're working on in January. So what's really fascinating is that in the book, James Clear defines atomic habits as a tiny change, a marginal gain, a 1% improvement. Habits are like the atoms of our lives. Each one is a fundamental unit that contributes to your overall improvement. And so when he talks about atomic habits, he's talking about micro habits basically, which I'm such a huge fan of, and making small incremental improvements. He talks throughout the book about just striving to be 1% better every day. And that is just such a good, kind of easy thing to work on as you're working on self-improvement and self-development, whether that's in your personal life, in your career, in your finances, like in your health, your relationships, any part of your life, is just to be able to think about consistent incremental improvement, because that's the way that we really do make huge wins over a year, 5 years, 10 years. There's a great Bill Gates quote where he talks about most people overestimate how much they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate how much they can accomplish in 10 years. And I think that gets down to the concepts in this book as well, is if you are really building strong habits, putting in the consistent effort, continually working to improve, in 10 years, you're going to be in places you can't even imagine. James Clear really gives you the tools in this incredible, incredible book that I just cannot recommend highly enough to be able to really make meaningful, lasting change in any part of your life. And I feel like he's very compassionate with his approach, and also really understands that we all struggle, we all have bad habits, and we can actually overcome each and every one of them with a lot of the tools in here, and then with getting appropriate support too. So let's look at how all of this kind of applies to our finances, since this is by and large a finance channel, although this year I will say I want to branch out a lot more and be talking a lot more about business, talk a lot more about productivity. I want to talk about more about what I'm doing in my business and how I'm growing both of my businesses, both this one and my vintage boutique that I have on Etsy, and just really do more kind of breadth and not necessarily talk just about personal finance. So it's going to be a really fun year, and I'm really excited to be kicking it off with all of you wonderful people. So I had a really hard time boiling this down to kind of key takeaways because this video could be 4 hours long if I was going to talk about everything that I love about this book, but we're just going to boil it down to 4 key takeaways. So the first one is to really, one of the things this book teaches you how to do is to focus on identity and not outcomes. Guys, this one, if you only watch this much of the video, just watch this section, okay? Focus on identity and not outcomes. Because the argument that James Clear makes for focusing on that is that lasting change happens when your habits reinforce who you believe you are, so your identity. And I was like thinking about this, and I was like, this is why I reread this book every single year, because I love this of focusing first on who do you want to be. So examples of this could be, instead of saying I should save more money, really instead, and that again, that focuses on an outcome, the identity-based version of this would be, I'm the kind of person who saves money for emergencies so that I have peace of mind come what may. And so you can see the difference between this is you start to really adopt a whole identity rather than say, well, I should do this or I should do that. I mean, the same thing is true for getting in shape. Rather than say, well, I should work out more, like, oh, I should work out more, but like, how much fun is that sometimes when you're not feeling very motivated? Be able to say, I'm the kind of person who works out for an hour every single day, which is what I've been working on this year. So far, I've been doing pretty good with my streak. But just changing that identity. And then once you have the identity of saying, I'm the kind of person who works out for an hour every day, then it's a lot easier because you've got a streak going, and then it just becomes a habit, and then it just becomes automatic. Then when you don't work out, you just are like, oh, I missed my workout, and I don't even feel as good in my body or in my kind of mental space as I normally do when I work out. And so it's a really, really good tool to just focus on identity, like he said, when you're trying to build new habits, not on outcomes. There's a great quote from the book. He says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. I'm going to read that again because I just love that. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And yes, we all slide off the bandwagon from time to time. Okay, so this is not to say we're never going to miss a day working out, or we're never going to make an impulsive purchase again. We're human. We're human. And again, one of the things I like about this book is it's not preachy, it's not judgmental. It leaves space for us to be human. And so I really do love that. Second takeaway, if you're still watching, is small habits compound like interest. So if you're an investor, you know that the power in compounding interest is that if you are in, say, really well-balanced ETFs, exchange-traded funds, they're basically a basket of, little bits and pieces of different things, whether it's stocks or bonds or whatever. There's lots of different ETFs. If you're invested in ETFs for, say, 10 years, you're going to have the benefit of compound interest over time as your money continues to make you money and gets reinvested, and it's a great deal. So it's a very similar story when it comes down to our habits. So his idea is that good habits compound over time, very similarly to if you're invested in the markets or in a good ETF. He says success is the product of daily habits, not a once-in-a-lifetime transformation. And I really love this so much. There's another really good book that's back there on the bookshelf called Habit, or The Power of Habit by James Duhigg. I'll put it up on screen and link to it in the description. You all will really enjoy that one too. If you enjoy books like Atomic Habits, we will do a review on that later in the year as well. That is a great one. But again, James Clear's idea of striving to be 1% better every day, so think about the compound interest, it doesn't feel dramatic in the moment of like, 1% better every day. But over a year or 10 years, it's transformational. So this is a powerful tool if you feel stuck or behind financially. You just start small and stay consistent. And I would say that's true in any area of your life, finances or otherwise. The third key takeaway that I wanted to share with you is environment beats willpower. This is such a really, really profound one that I had actually kind of forgotten about until I was rereading this book. And again, it's just such a profound book. But environment beats willpower. One of the most underrated insights in this whole book is that your environment shapes your behavior far more than motivation or willpower ever will. And it's just something to be cognizant of. This is just how we roll as humans, right? And so if you're cognizant of it, you can work, just understand how to kind of work around that. James has a great quote in here. He says, the best way to break a bad habit is to make it impractical to do. And it's so true. If you try this, he has a lot of really practical examples about how to do this. But if you try this, you will see this is actually the case. He has something that he calls the 4 laws of behavior change that he goes through in the book. It's super straightforward. It's a big chunk of this book is dedicated to breaking this all down, what his 4 laws of behavior change are. But in a nutshell, it's to make good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And then to make bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. So you can see it's kind of the inverse of his law of the good habits, like the bad habit, break the bad habits is like the inverse of that law. So it's just absolutely fascinating. So again, make good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Make bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult and unsatisfying. And he has I think his example in the book, or one of them that he gives, is that he was having trouble wasting too much time on social media. And so he literally would hand his phone over to his personal assistant every morning and make her reset the password on it. And he couldn't have his phone back at all, or the password. I guess he probably needed his phone, right? But he couldn't have the password to his social media accounts until the end of the day when he'd wrapped up his work for the day. And I just thought that was just such a great hack, because how many of us struggle with this, myself included, of just, getting down a rabbit hole on Instagram or on social media, and just spending far too much time, it just goes so quickly when, we're just there kind of zoned out. And so it's just really fascinating that if you follow his 4 laws of behavior change and really work on that to make it easy to do the good habits, to make it difficult to do the bad habits, and then you're just setting yourself up in an environment where even if your willpower is wavering because you're tired, for example, your environment is set up to make you able to succeed. And I just absolutely love this. So great takeaway from this book. And then the 4th and final takeaway from Atomic Habits is that systems matter more than goals. And this is so interesting. This might be a little bit controversial, because he really makes the argument that if you have the right systems in place, goals are pretty much irrelevant. And some people might feel really strongly about goals and feel like it really motivates them. So, whatever works best for you. But he has some really interesting insights into this. He really argues that while goals have their place sometimes, systems are what gets results. It's just a matter of consistently focusing on the right inputs to get the outputs you want. Now, I would say it's helpful to have direction, so that you know which inputs to put in the first place. So I don't think goals are all terrible. I think, vision boarding and things like that is really amazing. Just having a vision, having a picture of where you want to land, and then you can put in the right inputs. So I do think personally that there is a place for goals, but he says if you focus on the inputs, you're going to get the outputs you want. And I think that's generally very, very true. There's a great quote from the book. He says, if you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. How wonderful is that? I mean, it's such a compassionate book. If you're having trouble changing habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again, not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And you all have, if you're subscribed to my newsletter, which I'll link to in the description as well, you've seen me quote so many things from Atomic Habits and from James Clear, because he just comes up with such great kind of behavioral advice, and all of these things, how to be our best selves, best version of ourselves. So anyway, you've probably seen that quote before in one of my newsletters. But one of the things that you can think about from a financial perspective is if you have a goal such as I want to save $10,000, but then you're not quite sure how to do it, it's going to stay a goal. It's going to stay a dream. It'll stay very intangible. And if you break it down into systems and inputs, you will then be able to accomplish that dream you have of saving $10,000. So, the systems are going to look like a paycheck automation out of your account that's automatic, that goes into that savings account, that maybe the savings account is the high yield savings account that you set up at another bank. So it's completely out of sight, out of mind, and you forget it's even there. And then money goes straight from your paycheck over to your high yield savings account. And after however much time, then you'll have that $10,000. So it's just really about, and this is true in finance, this is true in so many other areas of life, systems, input. If you get it right, it's so much more likely that you'll get where you want to go, rather than just setting big goals that you might get really motivated about for a few weeks or a few months and then lose motivation and lose your willpower, and then the whole thing crumbles. He's teaching you how to build a solid foundation for yourself. And so I think that's one of the most wonderful things about this book. So again, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Let me know in the comments if you've read it and what you loved about it the most, what really stood out to you and key takeaways. And also if any of this really vibed with you, let me know as well, because I would love to hear from you as well in the comments on that. And I have another video that I think you will enjoy next that I will put up on screen, and I will see you there soon.